Hey, this is massive. This is a big ordeal. This probably forced the Hollywood Brown trade a lot more than anybody else could even imagine. And that's still wild because it didn't seem like Baltimore took advantage of the Cardinals as much as they potentially could have if they knew that they were in this type of position. Ian Rappaport reported yesterday that the Arizona Cardinals will lose wide receiver DeAndre Hopkins for the first 6 games of the NFL season after a PED suspension. Now, let's remember that he will be able to attend training camp and OTAs, and I think even play in preseason games if he wants to. Once the regular season starts, though, he will not be allowed in the building until at least week 7. He has dropped his appeal on this entire thing, so this is set and locked and loaded for Nuke. Nuke had a response. He said that he has never tested positive for any performance-enhancing drugs in his 10-year NFL career. To learn that his November test came back with trace elements of a banned substance, he was confused and shocked. Okay. I am very mindful of what I put in my body and have always taken a holistic approach, so I'm working with my team to investigate how this could have happened. But even as careful as I have been, clearly I wasn't careful enough. For that, I apologize to Cardinals fans, my teammates, and the entire Cardinals organization. I never want to let my team down. I fully intend to get to the bottom of this. As soon as I have more information, I will share it. DeAndre Hopkins via DeAndre Hopkins Instagram. So he says he takes a holistic approach. Maybe it was the punch of karma.
Could have been.
No, I have no idea what it could have been, but I do know that this is a very fickle situation because the players in the NFL that do not take any performance-enhancing drugs have a view on the guys that do take performance-enhancing drugs as, oh, those guys are certainly cheating. Those guys have the ability to recover quicker. Those guys have the ability to not get sore. Those guys' attention and focus levels are higher than mine will ever be without it. So there is a very much negative attitude on performance-enhancing drugs in the NFL world, okay? I don't know if people just expect that a lot of people are on a bunch of PEDs and shit like that. I don't think that's an accurate assessment at all, at least from my time in the NFL. What I do know, though, is that a lot of guys will take a lot of supplements to try to make up for either energy lacking or focus or anything like that, and they try to read all the ingredients that are on all of the supplements. Some supplements, even a friend will get a marketing deal with, and they'll bring it in, and it'll be for the entire locker room. You got all these supplements, and if you read through what are allegedly in the supplements, they will say, hey, everything in here is good for you guys in the NFL testing thing. But the thing about the supplement business, you see, is it's not FDA regulated. Oh. So people can just literally fucking lie about what are in supplements. So guys will take these supplements, and we've all heard of all the different ones for pre-workout and everything like that. And literally, they might be taking something that they had no clue and even investigated and looked into and might have even called the fucking operation and say, hey, this says there's none of this in there. Is there any of this in there? And they say, no, there isn't any in there because it doesn't have to be regulated, doesn't have to be investigated, doesn't have to get approved. They can just say what's in there and it not have to be in there. So guys, since the beginning of drug testing, have been failing tests when they legitimately do not believe they're taking anything. And for a long time, it was always like, oh, that guy's fucking lying. That guy's lying. That guy's lying. And it's like, no, the guy's not lying. It maybe was the supplement that he was taking was literally lying right to his face on the bottle. And if you're somebody who isn't the most educated human of all time, like you have to learn this, you would just assume that the GNC is not going to lie to you. You would assume that the bottle that is a company that is making millions and millions of dollars isn't going to lie to you. But there's a chance that their operation, their warehouse, the way they go about filling in their supplements into the pills or whatever, gets tainted by another supplement that they're making at the same exact warehouse or facility that's being packaged into another bottle and another branding. So there's like a chance that guys have failed tests over the NFL since the beginning of the NFL that they had no clue that they were going to fail for, had no intentions of failing for, and actually hate what happened. That has been happening, I think, since the beginning because of the way the FDA views the supplement companies. With that being said, there are some dudes that just are trying. There are some dudes that are just trying to beat the game. I mean, baseball had a big deal with it, and I know the, what's that documentary?
Screwball.
Screwball documents an entire thing. They're trying to beat the fucking testing system. They are trying we need our testosterone to boost at this particular time, but go down after this particular time because they could get drug tested at this time. And in this month, we need this to happen and we need to have our levels at this. So they were gaming the testing. Like, that's insane. And I think at baseball, that was at a much higher level. Then Icarus, the documentary about Lance Armstrong that ended up becoming a documentary about the Russians cheating the Olympic testing thing, with the mad scientist actually getting caught up in this documentary, the way they're able to construct things that are getting injected into their bodies and then have the ability to drop off for a test and then come back up. It's like insanity.
Yeah.
I think there are guys like that in the NFL as well. I think there are guys that are trying to beat the game, beat the system, trying to get through it and do that whole thing. But I do believe a lot of the fails are from guys that have no fucking idea that they're going to potentially fail, and it comes out of nowhere, and it's very alarming because your immediate thought is, oh, my entire legacy is going to be tainted. Everything I've ever done on the football field is going to be tainted by this one particular test in which I took a pre-workout that I had no idea had this shit in it, and it turns out it had it in there. It's a crazy time, and that's why you always see in my 10-year career, I've never tested positive, because that's Nuke worrying that this one fuck-up could potentially taint everything, and I don't think it should, especially if it comes out that he had no fucking idea.
Well, and he had the nagging injury all last year, too, so there's probably a good chance this was for, like, a recovery type thing, and he just assumed, like, hey, this is going to help me, because they were right in the middle of that playoff push, too. Like, every week it was like, well, Nuke's got this injury, but is he going to play? Like, he probably, I mean, it stinks, because especially when you see, like, how badly they need him. I don't know. And like you mentioned with, like, all the guys, like, I don't know. Do you think most people just assume that he has been doing this his whole career?
I don't know, but I do think that people think that he was taking it on purpose. Like, I think people's natural thing every time an athlete, and I might be wrong. I could be wrong, and I apologize that I'm potentially judging people for being this negative. But I think anytime a player comes out and says, like, I did not know this was in there, the natural reaction is like, well, how do you not fucking know?
How? Especially,
How do you not fucking know? And it's like that FDA stuff is real. Like, they don't have to, somehow the supplement world has fallen into this crack that they don't have to get legitimized, that not everything gets investigated. I think they have to have, I think their warehouses and manufacturers have to be up to a certain code.
Yeah.
But what's actually going into the shit is not getting legitimized or tested, I don't think, unless they change it within the last year or so.
I think people's normal reaction immediately is to go that negative route, especially when you're coming off an injury. They just assume players are trying to get back from injury faster. And the stuff with, like, the GNC and not having to say what's exactly in it, does him saying that he's completely holistic hurt that? Like, because do holistic people put
supplements?
Yeah.
I think so.
Okay, I didn't know if they just only had ginseng.
Well, that's what I think, that type of shit comes in, like, pills and
Yeah,
shit.
it does.
You know, like, I think they do almost more of that.
Yeah,
Almost.
specifically.
But it's not like they're not putting, like, creatine in there.
Correct.
And, like, caffeine and everything. It's like almost the vitamins and how do you make your body the Uber that it could possibly be. I think. I don't know enough about any of this to really be talking, but I do remember, like, the supernatural Healy people taking the vitamins.
A lot of herbals.
Yeah, and all
stuff,
that
and
shit.
supplements,
So they don't have to eat it because it tastes terrible.
Well, how often does that list change, though? Like,
every year of what the new stuff that's on the list of what they're testing for?
Yeah, exactly.
Because if for a while there are guys that are, if it's not getting tested for, okay, we can do this, and then the NFL catches up to them almost.
So they have to keep up with it every year, because, like, if Nuke last year did this, what if he was banged up and then was like, okay, we'll just try that again because it worked for me. But then, going into the season,
everybody knows. Everybody
they get updated.
Yeah, everybody gets a heads up. Like, hey, this has been added into the testing. For instance, the deer antler spray.
Yeah.
The deer antler has something in it that generates some sort of reaction. I'm not 100% sure what it is. I haven't looked into it enough. But it was not being tested for a long time by the NFL. And guys had found out about it. And guys had been using it, right? Because it was a recovery agent, I think. I'm not 100% sure. Right. I think. But it hadn't been found out yet by the NFL. So then when the NFL finds out about it, it becomes a big story. Hey, the NFL is now testing for whatever's in. They're not testing for deer antler spray. Whatever the motherfucker that's in the deer antler spray that's actually doing the work, that automatically ends up on the list. And it's an interesting process, man. The whole drug, because I've seen guys walk in the locker room. It's like, well, that guy's definitely on something.
Yeah.
Like, what's that guy? Then he'll fail a test. He'll get suspended, not care at all, come back the exact same way. It's like, yeah, that's just how I Yeah, this is just who I am.
Yeah, you lose money.
They're
and-
either going to catch me or they're not.
Yeah.
It's crazy. And then, but a large majority, there is no conversation about that type of shit in the locker room. None. Ever. I don't think I've ever heard anybody talk about that type of stuff in the locker room other than like, hey, you can go get, this guy does good blood. They remove your blood and then pump it back into your knees and regenerate this, the whole thing. That wasn't really a conversation I heard much about. But I think everybody's trying to beat the game. But in the NFL, it's not like you're heralded as a cool dude if you're taking shit. It's
No,
like, it's
right.
not. It's like, oh, this guy is fucking over people right now.
Well, and it's like in baseball where it's like, hey, if you're going to get suspended, but you're going to hit 30 more home runs and make $50 million more, like in football, like you just said, guys come in the offseason, maybe they look a little different, and then they miss 4 or 5 or 6 games, but then they have one of their best years and they probably get paid because of it. It's probably pretty hard to, justify doing it, but also understand that, hey, my entire livelihood is based on what I do on the field. And sure, this is going to hurt me in the short term, but in the long term, there's a chance that I really benefit from, doing this.